this trade can keep going. Okay, everybody. Now that was a nice, fun trading day. It's nice when they go up. Let's talk about Tesla and what's going on there. Then I've got about 4 other ideas that we should be focused on tomorrow. First, let's run through these earnings. Let's walk through these earnings and just a couple key things as this just comes out. So first and foremost, they're blowing out of their Bitcoin. So I think this is really important for people to get. Bitcoin could see pressure on this, and they added, it looks like they blew out a 75% of it, and that's going to add about $1 billion to the balance sheet, 396. I don't really want to get into delivery growth and annual growth because it changes so much. For me, the bigger concern that I would see is that total deliveries versus total production are not knocking the cover off the ball. So what he's saying, or what their company's saying here, these numbers are not huge beats on production or delivery. That's the first thing that's going to stick out. Now, as we're talking about this, obviously, as we just went over, the stock's up a little bit. But the beat is good because he came out earlier and said that they were bleeding at Austin, that they were bleeding from Berlin, both these facilities, which makes a lot of sense that they are bleeding from there. But this revenue miss really needs to be explained. And I'm hoping that it's explained in great detail in the future conference call that will have taken place after this. But this could be something very similar to what happened with Netflix, where Netflix had currency risk because the dollar was so strong. And that very well could be with Tesla, what did it. So I'm really curious what that number is, because 227 beat is big. Now that we've gone through the earnings, let's talk stock. So we have this little rule that we talk about all the time. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and click all notifications, especially during earnings season. But this is the first minute bar. And this first minute determines the range, right? So you can see how we held that, right? And that was support. And you can see how we're cracking it right now. So we need to see what they say on the conference call. The larger issue is just the straight selling on a 45-degree angle. For those that follow me in the trading room or on the pre-market live calls, 45-degree angles are usually institutional selling or some kind of algorithm. And that's exactly what you're starting to see. We're forming a huge H here right now. So we're going to really have to see, yep, there it goes, just broke that H. So we're going to have to kind of see how this plays out. Maybe it'll be a failed H, maybe it won't, but we're going to have to watch that. Now, that's what's going on in a 1-minute chart. What we do is overlay this with a 15-minute chart, and it gives us a range. Now, if you use this range yesterday, it would save you a lot of money on Netflix, and I'll go through that lesson in a minute, something that you can use on your own. Please comment on this video. The reason I'm pointing out these little strategies is because I was asked to in the comments. I read every single comment, and I respond to every single comment. It just takes me time because I'm basically doing it all myself. But this is your range. So until I break this range, I really have no interest in playing this one way or another. Anything in the middle here, to me, is just a scalp. Now, just let me show you this so you kind of get that. So yesterday, here's your 15-minute range, okay? So when this tried to rally and failed and got back up into this range, this was a really clear signal for me to put on a short position with a very tight stop, right? So I just put a short on, then I just watch the levels. There's 4 very important levels you always watch. You always watch the high, the low, the open, and the close. And you'll see how those levels are defended as the day goes on, right? Especially pre and post. And you can see how these levels were defended and then how you developed these, other levels that were there from the daily chart. But by utilizing that system with something like Tesla, you know that you're inside this bar, overlaying this chart with more definitive scalping of a 1-minute, and you would know that off of this bar, you know that you don't really want to be in this, okay? So you can see those levels pretty clearly marked off. Remember, these little points, just remember what they are. This is where an algorithm where someone is saying, I will buy everything, and the sellers are dried up. And this is where somebody is saying, I will sell as much as I can here, and the buyers are dried up. If you think about it from then the movements that happen, right, start to make a little more sense. So just watch how this acts. Let's go through some levels that you can watch on Tesla tomorrow. So I'm going to leave the pre and the post in. The very first thing you're going to notice about this is that if I take the pre and the post out, it changes the levels, right? But we're going to leave that in for now. So we know that it's really not above here. And we know that overnight so far we have popped out of this wedge and come back in. So for me, there's very little that I need to do here. Okay, this could be very simple where they're just going to bleed everybody out that bought options. Okay, in other words, they just bleed the call buyers and they bleed the put buyers, and the only person that makes money is the option market maker. So until you see us get above this level tomorrow, so the first one I'm going to give you is I would say 755. You want to see if you're above that. You certainly are going to want to watch that level and then watch 764. Make sure that you get over this. And let me just point that out a little clearer. So you can see that right here, 765 is actually that wick. This is 760, but let's use 765. So if you pop out over this, okay, and you get over 752, we're going to call it, watch that level 765 next. Okay, that would be your first real higher high after this lower low, and that would give you some kind of catalyst. Right now I don't see a whole heck of a lot that's exciting that would get me into this, that makes me feel that I have to own it. Now there are names out there that are making me feel that way that we have to look at. So this was one that we went over today. We actually did this in the live stream pre-market. If you can, tune into them. They're at 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Thursday, and you can always watch the replays later. But so I walked through this note, and what really got this going, in my opinion, was this note that came out of Tehran by Putin. And it basically just talks about how they're trying to increase capacity, how they're going to see a huge shortage this winter, and he's explaining the constraints that are going on. Now, whether you believe him or don't believe him, the bottom line is you have to believe the constraints because both sides are saying that. Germany is saying it and Russia is saying it. So you have to believe the constraints that are there. So based upon that, you're seeing natural gas come out and move higher. This trade can keep going. I don't see any reason for natural gas prices to come down when demand is going to be so great, right? When you want something, you're going to pay more for it. More people are going to pay more for natural gas. This is the single one that you can just simply trade if you don't want to trade BOIL because you don't want a levered ETF and you don't want to watch your stock go from 140 to 38. If you just want something a little more calming to put on and not have to watch every 15 seconds, UNG fits that model pretty clearly. And that's definitely one that I would look at. Now, let's talk about what's going on out there in consumer world. So here you are on Shop. This one was pointed at me today. Actually, pre-market, we went over this, and I went over it last night as well with the trading community. But you see this? See that level right there? Watch this, because this is just the type of stuff you really need to start paying attention to. You flip that 50, and that's all you really wanted to see. Bonk, bonk. I mean, look at it. Pure bonk level, right? It doesn't get any clearer. And what do? We flipped it. So these are the types of names that you want to go out there and start looking at accumulating. Names that have been basing for about 3 months and that are breaking out. That's where you want to focus your money and when you focus your attention right now, okay? Also, just realize that you could see Bitcoin and Bitcoin names weak tomorrow as it came out that you actually had Tesla reduce 75% of their position. To me, that's a win-win. When do you think they reduced it? Between last quarter. So in other words, the past 90 days is when they were reducing it, right? So they were reducing it all in here, okay, because they need cash, not because of what they think of Bitcoin. Huge difference there. So that could actually have been the pressure that we saw here, and now that seller's alleviated. So I'm looking at it a little different, even though Bitcoin is weaker on the news. Just keep that in mind. I still think you could see 27,000 here. I don't think this move on Bitcoin's done. Caveat, I did have a starter position in Riot that I'm down a little bit in today. I will continue to hold that. And we'll go from there. I do want to point out a couple things. This AMC, you need to pay attention to this, okay? So a lot of these reversals are not going. They're not reversing. They're reversing back to the initial position. We've been talking about this since about 15 and a half. We talked about it 2 weeks ago in the top 10 video. That's why I always tell people, make sure you get the newsletter. There's a link in the description below so you can follow along. Also, make a list of the names that we go over so that you can follow these names later because they don't always move when I think they're going to move. Sometimes, quite frankly, I'm early, but you're breaking out. Look at this close and look at where you're at right here. I would not want to be short going into the weekend AMC, and I certainly am not going to want to be short AMC going into earnings that's coming out in the next 3 weeks. So I could really see this push if you got above here. And one way to start determining your levels of where you're going to push to is just use volume by price. Just click on volume by price, see where the players are. And then you see that, wow, wait a minute. If I get through 1950, I have nothing but blue sky. So we have some resistance right here at the 1850. You can see all that supply up there. They're going to want out, but and it's also, you're basically at volume by price VWAP going out to about January, right? So volume by price VWAP's right there, but point of control's down here. So flipping that higher high might be all you need, and that's what I would focus on. Let's take a look at the indexes because I think this is really pertinent. So you're down a little bit after hours because Tesla's banging around, but you see where you're at here? You're above the 50-day, this is curling. Now, to me, until I'm below the 50-day again, I have to be a net long buyer. That's where my head is. Everything is aligned up and telling me to buy. Now, could we reverse tomorrow? Sure, but I would suggest this, that dips are now buys. Okay, same thing with the SPY. You're above the 50-day. You have a higher high. Now the proof to me is on the bears. It's no longer on the bulls. It's on the bears, just like it was when you broke out here and then we reversed to the downside. Okay, proof changes, right? And with the way that these are pointing up, now you do have a big week next week, and I'll get into that more in Saturday's video. But overall, the volatility is still contracting. Okay, you're still seeing some pressure on the bond market, right? You're just basically trading around on the 20-year, but let's take a look at the 10-year. Okay, you're still seeing some pressure, some selling in bonds, but the market's going higher and shrugging that off now. So just kind of keep that in mind, because that's really what we're seeing at this particular time. And that's what you should be focused on. And let's just wrap this up with Tesla and talking about this and seeing where you're at after hours. And let's look at that 15-minute guide. So here's your guide that we walked through. Let's get rid of all these indicators. And I said, use this as your range. And now look at what's happening. You're already breaking that low of the range. So somebody may want to use this, and this would probably be where I would be getting out of the trade and starting my short position right here. Now, you're not going to see this for an hour or two, but that's where I would start looking there. And I drill down into like a 1 minute and see if I could find a spot to look at where to short this, and then seeing how it's acting at that level, and then make a decision on what I'd want to do. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in the trading room, there is a link to preview it in the quarter. At the top right, take a look. Please comment on these videos and please like them, because it helps me with the algorithm and I want to grow the channel. So I appreciate it. I purposely don't run ads to waste your time. Everyone have a great evening. Hope you had a great trading day, and trade to win tomorrow.